washing my brain with the candlelight. Losing my breath, losing myself, dreams are out of sight. Stop struggling against my demons. Stop taking life as fiction. Let it burn, burn, burn. Burn the pain, burn the lies, burn the fear inside myself, and burn it all again. It's the right time to escape this cage I've been looking for so long. It's not where I belong. Let it burn, burn, burn into the ground.
Hello, everyone. If you don't know, you should know. My name is Rick Mullinax, and this is Burn After Reading. Thanks to the 11 of you who have showed up. I do appreciate it. Let's see who we got in the house here. Give our hellos. So we got Spoof and Spoof. Hello. Ruth. Yes, jury watch. Every day until a verdict is decided. If a verdict is decided, that'll be interesting. I mean, I guess a hung jury or whatever, I guess, is a verdict, right? I guess. But I just mean guilty or not guilty. Let's see who else we got. Shane, how are you, man? We got the wild card, Melissa. Melissa, hello. So, as we know, today was the closing arguments, and the jury has been instructed in what their duties are as far as what kind of verdict they're going to determine. And they did a little bit of deliberation. I know they had to pick a foreman, which I'm sure wasn't easy. And I wasn't surprised. I would have been completely shocked if they would have came up with a verdict today. They didn't really have a lot of time to do that. But we're going to see how this is going to unfold. Everyone's is on pin and needles. Most importantly, the families of Abby and Libby, and naturally, Richard Allen. I'm sure he's on pins and needles, and his family. But all of us are, right? We're all on that. So I figured I would go ahead and recap the closing arguments, starting with the states, because I believe they started, and then also the defense. I haven't read what I'm about to read, so a lot of it will be new to me. I mean, I clearly knew some of the bullet points as always, but yeah, let's see what we got here. Burn, your name is Rick as well. I am so sorry, bro. Rick Allen, Rick Snay. You can legally change it. No, I'll keep it. I don't mind being a dick. I heard the jury wanted to be finished 30 minutes early today, per Twitter or X. Do you know the context of that? Like, just to be done, to go home, relax, get their bearings straight for the next day. That could be possibly the case. But all right, let me share my screen here. All right. And so, as always, I take this from Fox 59. I know there's some other good news stations or websites that also kind of have a blog, or they kind of give a pardon me, give a rundown on everything. But Fox 59, I just felt, in my opinion, just has the best flow as far as explaining what's going on. So without further ado, so Delphi murders, state delivers closing arguments. Before Carroll County Prosecutor Nick McClellan made his presentation to jurors, Special Judge Fran Gohl reminded the courtroom to remain silent during the proceedings and told the gallery she wouldn't hesitate to remove anyone who broke decorum. And that's fair enough, right? After the jury entered the courtroom, Gohl read jury instructions and told them that they were the judges who must consider all the facts of the case. He read the charges aloud, defining murder and what is often known as felony murder to the jury. Richard Allen faces 4 counts of murder in the February 2017 deaths of Abby Williams and Libby German near the Monon High Bridge. 2 counts are what is often known as felony murder, which is causing someone's death in the commission of a crime. In this case, the state argues that underlying crime was kidnapping. The other 2 murder count charges, Allen, or I'm sorry, let me say that again. The other 2 murder counts charge Allen with killing the girls. Now that's interesting. I've known this, and this is something I've never brought up, but is it possible? Is it possible they will charge him with the felony murder, but not the other charges? Is that possible? Or does that seem unlikely? I'm curious to know what you guys think. So, Gohl said jurors must weigh the value of witness testimony and told them Allen was under no obligation to testify and that his lack of testimony can't be held against him. State makes its case. McClellan went first, delivering closing arguments that lasted a little more than an hour. He described how Abby and Libby went to the trails on February 13th, 2017, and never came back. He described it as a day this community will never forget. He said Libby's older sister drove them to the trails and dropped them off at 1:48 p.m. When Libby German's father arrived to pick them up around 3 p.m., they didn't show up at the prearranged meeting spot. More alarmingly, no one could contact them. He went looking for the girls but didn't find them. He called Libby's grandmother, Becky Patty, at 3:30 p.m., leading to additional family searches. Still, no one could find or contact the girls. The search grew throughout the day and lasted until 2 a.m., when it became too dark and too dangerous. No one thought anything bad had happened to Abby and Libby, McClellan said. That doesn't happen around here. Searcher Pat Brown, not to be confused with the criminal profiler, found the bodies on February 14th, 2017, and said they looked like mannequins. Bridge guy and a bullet. Next, McClellan showed crime scene photos, telling the court that these next pictures are hard to see. While processing the crime scene, investigators found Libby's phone and the bullet that became central to the state's case. McClellan mentioned the bridge guy video found on Libby's phone and played it for the jury. The video was taken at 2:13 p.m. and in McClellan's estimation showed the moment Abby and Libby were kidnapped. He said, pardon me, he said Bridge Guy ordered them down the hill and used a gun to intimidate them. He played an enhanced version of the video with the down the hill part amplified. He recounted numerous witnesses who saw someone on the high bridge and mentioned Sarah Carbaugh, who told investigators she saw a man who was muddy and bloody walking along the road around 4 p.m. McClellan noted that descriptions from the witnesses varied somewhat, but were all adamant they encountered Bridge Guy. McClellan mentioned Steve Mullen, the former Delphi police chief and investigator for the prosecutor's office, who looked at video from the nearby Hoosier Harvest store. Forensic experts analyzed Libby's phone, which indicated the girls arrived on the trails at 1:48 p.m. and walked to the Monon High Bridge. At 2:32 p.m., the analysis found Libby's phone stopped moving and stayed where it was. McClellan then brought up a map and reviewed the timeline of events. One witness and her friends encountered Bridge Guy at 1:26 p.m. Another witness saw Bridge Guy and passed the previous witnesses, he said. Passed the previous witnesses. If we determine who Bridge Guy is, we can find out who killed them, McClellan said. And I'm glad he did that. I'm glad he had the map, and I'm glad he really established the timeline. That was something I was really hoping he was going to do in this closing argument. If you go back to the other videos that I did the past couple of days, that's something that I preached on, because I thought Gray Hughes did an excellent job of a timeline, video, and map that really laid that out. And if you haven't watched that, haven't seen it, you probably have, because I got very few followers. He's got a ton. You probably already watched it if you're interested in the Delphi case. Suspicion falls on Allen. He recounted how in September 2022, Kathy Schenk, a volunteer who helped police organize tips related to the Delphi murders, came across a tip sheet from 2017 that indicated a person told a DNR investigator he'd been on the bridge between 1:30 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. on February 13th, 2017. The man's name was Richard Allen. It appeared no one had followed up on him. And I'll say it to this day, the fact that that was ignored, the fact that that was misplaced, is the biggest bungle fucking job that law enforcement did. And they did a few others too. That right there was the biggest blunder, because you could have done one of two things. One, we could have figured this out earlier. The day would have been the day far earlier. Or, for those who believe Richard Allen is innocent, we could believe he could have been ruled out much quicker. Anyways, further investigation found Allen owned a black 2016 Ford Focus SE. McClellan said only one such model of that car was registered in Carroll County in February 2017. Investigators believe the car matched video from the Hoosier Harvest store. Police called Allen for an interview. He said he was wearing clothes similar to Bridge Guy. The interview started out polite, but soon turned hostile, with Allen refusing to let investigators look at his phone or search his house. To be fair to Allen, whether innocent or guilty, I wouldn't let law enforcement do it either, especially the way they were treating him. And clearly, if they believe that Allen was guilty, I mean, we understand how law enforcement, why they're doing what they're doing. But I'm looking at it from the end. If I'm guilty or even innocent, either way, I'm like, no, fuck you. That's how I would be with that. It's like, you ain't pinning this on me. Or if I'm the guy, I'm like, yeah, no, get a warrant. Like, I'm just not going to let you guys walk in willy-nilly. Anyways, police obtained a search warrant. The search turned up knives, box cutters, and a blue Carhartt jacket. I still don't know what to make of that blue Carhartt jacket. If he was covered in mud and blood, I mean, I guess he could have cleaned the shit out of that thing, like taken it somewhere. Like, I don't know. Like, I think that blue Carhartt jacket is not the jacket he wore when he was on the trails. But again, that's just my opinion, and it's conjecture, and I have nothing to back that up with. Just my guess. Anyways, surprise, surprise, McClellan said. Same as Bridge Guy was wearing. The search turned up a .40 caliber round kept in a Hope box and a Sig Sauer P226 handgun. McClellan described it as the Bridge Guy starter kit. Investigators recovered numerous electronic devices from Allen's home, but they didn't find the phone he had in 2017. An Indiana State Police crime lab technician determined that the bullet found at the crime scene was cycled through Allen's Sig Sauer. Oh, and her results were verified, McClellan said of the analysis from Melissa Oberg. During the follow-up interview with police, Allen said he never loaned his gun to anyone and had no explanation of how a bullet matched to his gun ended up at the crime scene of one of Indiana's most infamous murder cases. Police suggested that Allen racked his gun to intimidate the girls into doing what he told them. Allen grew angrier during the interview. Confessions central to State's case. McClellan said Allen was moved from a county jail to a state prison for his own safety. Once housed at Westville Correctional Facility, he starts to confess, the prosecutor said. He mentioned calls Allen made to his wife and mother. He played some of them in court. I did it. Just know I did it, Allen said in the call. I killed Abby and Libby. They're screwing with you there, his wife, Kathy Allen, said. I think I did it, Allen told his wife. I wish they would kill me or let me apologize to the families at least. McClellan recounted the testimony of Dr. Monica Walla, the prison psychologist who treated Allen at Westville and heard him confess. He told her his motive was sexual in nature and he took the girls' lives in order to preserve his own. Honestly, I think those girls' lives were going to be taken away regardless, my opinion. But he eventually gave Walla a more detailed account about February 13th, 2017, and said he saw a white van that startled him. Now, see, that's interesting because I thought that he said he just saw a van. So I'd like to know more details. Did he say he saw a white van specifically? Because if he said he saw a white van, but if he said he just saw a van, it's more general, but it's still compelling, right? But anyways, Wallace said Allen admitted he killed the girls and made sure that they were dead so they didn't suffer. Well, isn't that fucking kind of him? McClellan played another phone call. Did Kathy tell you I did it? Allen asked his mother. We're not going to discuss this, okay? She answered. We love you. You know that, don't you? I'm worried that you guys aren't going to love me because I said I did it, Allen replied. In another call to his mother, he said, I wouldn't tell you I did it if I didn't. The prosecutor described Allen's admissions as unprovoked. He mentioned a letter Allen sent to the warden and another statement he made about throwing a box cutter in a CVS dumpster. He pointed to testimony from ISP Master Trooper Brian Harshman, who listened to Allen's phone calls and noticed the details about the van and Allen's confession. Pardon me. McClellan described it as a detail only the killer would know. McClellan said the van was that of Brad Weber, who owns property across from the crime scene. Weber testified he clocked out of work around 2:02 p.m. on February 13th, 2017. That was verified. And drove by the crime scene on an access road around 2:30 p.m. That might have different stories, but very possible. According to the state's theory, that's around the time of the murders. The state suggested Allen saw the van, which spooked him, and then killed the girls. Harshman also testified after listening to hours of phone calls from Allen that the voice on the Bridge Guy video belonged to Allen. Harshman had no doubt in his mind. Okay, well, I guess we'll have to see how the jury feels about that. What's no doubt in his mind might be in the doubt of the jury. Because that video, I mean, they really had to amp that up to really get that voice, guys, down the hill. The guy's part was separated from down the hill, as we know, because one of the girls said hi. So that part, I don't know. Maybe he convinced himself of that, but I don't know if that would be really considered empirical. Who else empirically can say that was his voice? That's not me defending Richard Allen. That's me thinking critically. We should all think critically. We should all look at evidence and say this evidence is compelling, but if there's other evidence that's not, we should be able to look at that and say, I don't know about that. I think that's reaching. But that's okay. Anyways, McClellan's closing. McClellan said he had proved elements of each account Allen faces. The day started out like any other day, the prosecutor said. But that day, Bridge Guy stole the youth and light out of Abby and Libby. He said no one out on the trail that day matched the description of Bridge Guy except for Allen, and I do agree with that. He estimated Allen had about 7 minutes with the girls before Weber drove down the access road and spooked him. He told the court Allen slashed Libby's throat first and then killed Abby. So that answers that question. He slit their throats, he said. Allen used his gun and power to take those girls down the hill. If that's not enough to convince you, we have his confessions, McClellan said. He said the bullet left at the scene and Libby's phone led investigator. I'm sorry, let me say that again. If that's not enough to convince you, we have his confessions, McClellan said. He said the bullet left the scene and he said the bullet left at the scene and Libby's phone led investigators to Allen's doorstep. He said he believes the evidence showed Allen was responsible for killing the girls, asked the jury to consider all of the evidence, and implored them to find him guilty. And McClellan wrapped up at about 10:22 a.m. We'll get to the defense's argument here momentarily. I would like to see if there's any comments here. I think we should go over. Give me one moment. He's been charged with 4 counts of murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, and 2 counts of physical murder. Is he not a very for the felony being bridge guy? Is he not a very? I don't know if that was miswritten, but I'm just wondering if he'll be charged with some things and not others, or if they're basically if it's going to be complete totality. Sorry if that didn't make any sense. No, that's okay. I'm just curious if there's any possibilities with that. I'm not sure it makes it a felony because it happened during the commission of a crime. I would think both. Hang in, I'll Google. Well, the felony murder, I think they're looking that as more as a kidnapping charge, and that the fact that kidnapping led to their murders. So they're looking at that. So they're wondering if, well, can we actually say, we could say that, yes, Richard Allen actually kidnapped them, told them to go down the hill, but may not have been responsible for his actual murder. But I also think that's a way of the state kind of getting both ways here, which doesn't make much sense because they are claiming he's the only guy. They're using confessions of him saying he's the guy. So I just wonder if the jury would go that way by saying, yeah, we believe he led them down the hill that led to their murder, but he wasn't the guy who physically did it. I think this is going to be an all or nothing conviction, in my opinion. Are they deliberating now? Well, not now, but they were deliberating earlier. But they had to get a jury foreman. I don't know how long that took, but technically the deliberations start today and are going to continue on to tomorrow. I assume Saturday. I assume they're off on Sunday, and then it will continue for the rest of next week and so on until they reach a verdict. Well, actually, would they do it on Monday with the holiday of Veterans Day? Would they have a day off on that, or would they continue? That I don't know. So it might start Tuesday if they don't come to a decision tomorrow or Saturday. Maybe Monday, but definitely Tuesday if they haven't rendered a decision. See, that's interesting. Then why have different like why would you have 2 different counts with that? Because a felony murder is just specifically saying it's murder, it's felony murder, but you didn't physically commit the act, where the other one is actual physical murder, as in you're the one with the gun or the knife or whatever, use your hands to strangle someone. You physically committed the act. Where the other one is more of an accomplice, like they don't have an accessory, let me say that again, an accessory to murder type of thing. So No, not without a warrant. Innocent, guilty, I don't care. Um, I wouldn't let him either. Yeah, like I said, just common sense would tell me if we are to believe that Richard Allen is the murderer, he didn't keep that jacket. Um, I mean, I don't know. I mean, unless someone can, I mean, I'm surprised you can't find any evidence in the car or in that Ford Focus. Even to this day, there's not something he left behind. There's not some trace. It's possible, but I especially if you clean that car. But I'm thinking, even if you go home that day with your wife or whatever, and maybe he took it somewhere, but even then, you might have a witness that's seen you cleaning the shit out of your car and there's blood. Like, I don't know. It's not impossible, and there's a lot of explanations to get around that, but it's still odd to me, unless he decided he was going to cover the vehicle beforehand, and I don't know if that's the case because I think he was casing. Um, I don't think he was sure and positive he was going to do what he was going to do that day, but I think he thought, and I explained it yesterday. It's like a nightclub. You got a guy, or you got a couple of guys. They're going to a nightclub. They're hoping to get lucky. They're not sure if they're going to get lucky, but they'll bring their condoms just in case. So if they meet a hot chick, or last call, and well, she looks hot, right? And she might look, in her eyes, she might think you're hot after having a couple of tequilas. Things happen, and I know that's a really weird way to explain it or compare it, but I think I think it is. Like, I think that's a way you could say it, is that you're kind of on the prowl, you're kind of searching, you're kind of seeing what's available. And I think, unfortunately, wrong place, wrong time for Abby and Libby, which is horrible. Makes breaks your heart. Thank you, Spoof. Appreciate it. Now, I agree with that. That's what felony murder is that you don't actually have to physically commit the actual physical act. It just means that you contributed to it. Beer goggles, whiskey goggles, tequila goggles, right? Could be any of those. And if Richard Allen is the guy, I can't say whether or not this is the first time he's ever done something like this and he just got caught. This could be the first time. Um, and how people like that disassociate, I couldn't tell you. So let me make sure. So this one, for some reason, this went all the way down. I couldn't tell you why. But here we go. We fixed it. So we're going to move on. So after the prosecution closed out its case in the Delphi murders trial, the defense delivered its closing argument. Rosie's closing remarks. Attorney Bradley Rosie delivered closing remarks for the defense. He noted there have been 17 days of testimony. He noted there have been 17 days of testimony over the course of 4 weeks. His argument for exonerating Allen revolved around 4 points: the state's broken murder timeline, which I don't think it's broken, but okay; the bungled ballistics, that's possible, but we'll see; false confessions. We at least know for a fact some of those were false, but that was after he testified to Walla and he talked to his wife and then talked to his lawyers, and all of a sudden the shit got wacky. But still, maybe. And digital forensics. And again, I think that's questionable. Well, let's move on. So, time and time again, Rosie said of investigators, we had to do their job. We pointed out that investigators refused to do a height analysis on the bridge guy video and lost hours and hours of interview videos. And that's all true. That was all sloppy and bad of law enforcement. When it came to Allen's Ford Focus SE. He noted that the state didn't know how many models of the car were in Carroll County in 2017 until they did a BMV search in the middle of the trial. Okay, and that's true. That's actually true, but I don't think there's anything to indicate that it wasn't his vehicle. But they're not technically wrong. And he said some witnesses were only able to present part of their accounts in court, with some of them unable to tell you the whole story. He recalled contentious cross examination with Sarah Carball, with whom the defense sparred over her use of muddy and bloody in different interviews with investigators. And again, I believe that was just due to sloppy accounts based on the law enforcement, but you still have to think of the potential integrity or their lack of Sarah Carball's, accounts. Is she telling the truth? Despite what law enforcement wrote down or did not, is she telling the truth? Is she credible in the eyes of the jury? We're going to find out. Got to take a breath before I talk about her, Rosie said. He recounted Carball's varying descriptions, including an interview in which she said Bridge Guy had a tan jacket, but later said it was blue after seeing the Bridge Guy photo that was released to the public. And that's fair enough. Fair enough. To the judge, or I'm sorry, you are the judge of the credibility of witnesses, Rosie said, casting aspirations on Carball's testimony. He said the state didn't call David McCain, a photographer on the Monon High Bridge on February 13th, 2017, because his account didn't fit their narrative. Well, I don't know how it helps or hurts, but okay. Botched investigation. He was critical of Steve Mullen, the former Delphi police chief who became an investigator for the Carroll County Prosecutor's Office, for trying to put Allen on the route they wanted. He said the fact that Brad Weber, who owns property near the crime scene, made contradictory statements about whether he went straight home after work on the day of the murders. Rosie asserted that Weber's gun had not been excluded, although prosecutor Mick McClellan later said it had been tested. Well, ask you this question. I mean, what, he's just going to ignore valuable evidence of Weber's gun and say, no, yeah, that actually fires the same. He could have something to do with it. But we're not going to look at him. I don't believe that. Also, the inconsistency with Weber's statement would be regardless of whether or not he actually arrived around the time that the girls were down the hill, versus we know the timestamp that Weber wouldn't have been there at that time to abduct the girls. So if that's what he's getting at, that's stupid. But if you're just talking about whether his statement was valid regarding whether he got home in time or not, that's something different. But I don't know. Let's move on. He railed against the state for failing to mention that the investigation parted ways with the FBI and wondered why the state didn't want to mention that. He brought up the sticks and branches left on the girls' bodies, which he said the defense had brought up. For more than a year, Rosie said, Allen sat in an isolated cell. The state, he said, only wanted to tell the jury what he said after 6 months of a little human contact. You must ask yourself why they don't want you to see the truth, he said. Rosie pokes holes in the state's case. He referred to the cartridge found at the crime scene as the magic bullet. It was the catalyst for Allen's arrest. Rosie referred to his client as Rick during the proceedings and said Melissa Oberg, the lab technician who determined the bullet had been cycled through Allen's gun, drew a conclusion, and you should just believe her because that's what the prosecutor wants. He mentioned perhaps the defense's biggest revelation in court, that their digital expert found data logs indicated something was inserted into the auxiliary port on Libby German's phone at 5:45 p.m. and removed about 5 hours later. I still call bullshit on that. There is a logical explanation for that. It was mentioned yesterday. moisture, dirt, water, things like that can kind of give a false positive on that. If I mean, I know we make fun of the whole Google thing, but if you Google it, you'll find out the same thing. What? Are all those motherfuckers lying? Are they lying? So what? I mean, is this a just such a giant urban myth? Anyways, they didn't tell you about that either, Rosie said. He also pointed out the state offered no explanation for why notifications and messages suddenly pushed through the phone at 4:33 a.m. on February 14th, 2017. You should question the credibility of this investigation, Rosie said. He again brought up the white van that became central to the case and pointed out that the state was just recently trying to fit that into its narrative. He suggested the desperation of investigators to solve a murder case that had gone cold for more than 5 years led them to arrest Allen. Other gaffes Rosie mentioned included waiting more than 7 years to do a search on a Ford Focus models in the area and testing DNA found in Abby Williams' hand just as the trial started. I agree with that too. I agree with that too. That should never have taken that long. The hair belonged to Libby German's sister, an analysis found. And all that says to me was um, they were in Kelsey German's car. The hoodie belonged to Kelsey. She has long hair. Anyone who has long hair can tell you that shit gets everywhere. It gets everywhere. And to the dumb fucks who want to accuse Kelsey German of having any kind of foul play or foul doing in this case, can fuck off. They can fuck right off. There is no logical, sane person that believes that Kelsey German or any family member had anything to do with this. And the fact that there have been shitheads like True Crime Design and others who have tried to push that, they are the worst of the fucking worst. They're worse than Anthony Greeno. And you all know my disdain for that guy. And believe me, he's got plenty wrong with him. But if I were to put someone on top of the mountain, it might have to be True Crime Design. But the thing is that I usually think that her shit's so bad shit crazy, who can believe it? But unfortunately, she's got a ridiculous amount of views. So that means there are a lot of stupid people out there watching her content. I don't know if half of them are hate watching or just watching it because it seems like a circus, or how much actually believe in the shit she says. But it takes a complete colossal moron to believe that Kelsey German had anything to do with this. Anyways, I digress. When the headphone data came up in court, the state's experts turned to Google for an explanation. Rosie characterized that as absolute desperation. Okay, desperation or not, what did it come up with? More than one killer. He said Dr. Roland Kaur, the pathologist who performed the autopsies, concluded that there may have been more than one murder weapon used, but changed his mind. One, anytime that a coroner makes something like that, it is an opinion. It's not an absolute fact. And they can designate to change their mind. They have that reservation. After his deposition, Kaur walked into his garage and tada, it may have been a box cutter. His change of heart, Rosie said, came after he met 3 times with the prosecution. And that very well may be. But they may have actually brought something to his attention that, I don't know, maybe could have rang true to him. But that kind of thing, that's possible. He said that the state's timeline depended on 2 people and suggested it would not be unreasonable to wonder if Carball saw anything. Betsy Blair's description of Bridge Guy wasn't consistent with Allen. Several witnesses from February 13th, 2017 didn't see or hear anything suspicious, Rosie said. He said the state completely ignored the theory of multiple actors in the girls' deaths. Did they, though? Because I remember in October 31st, 2022. That didn't sound like what McClellan was doing. I still believe that they were open to the possibilities that more than one person was involved. I believe as you go along and as you learn more, you know, you take a possibility and then you kind of close that if everything is just pointing to one person. So I don't know if I necessarily buy that, but anyways, uh, court testified multiple weapons could have been used. Former Carroll County Sheriff Toby Lesby said investigators believed more than one person was involved. Well, you can believe whatever you want. Whether it's true or not is a completely different story. The defense has tried multiple times to introduce its alternative murder theory, but Special Judge Fran Gall said Allen's team had produced no admissible evidence. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I do believe that the third party suspects should have been introduced in trial. That's my opinion. But I believe that the state could have done a very excellent job of debunking all that nonsense, but it probably would have taken up more time than it deserved. But I still believed go ahead, debunk it all, um, and hope that the jury is smart. So Rosie said the state suggested that 5'5". I thought he was 5'4". Now he's 5'5". Anyways, Richard Allen killed the girls and didn't leave a trace. That sometimes does happen. Only 10% of murder cases, DNA is left behind. So that is possible, especially if it's outside. The prosecutor asked you to see your. I'm sorry, let me say that again. The prosecutor asked you to use your common sense, and now it is that time, Rosie said. Allen came forward himself. He said Allen came forward in 2017 to offer information to police after the murders. He cooperated in his first interrogation in October 2022 and went back for questioning a second time, even though he knew he was likely a suspect at that point. Well, here's the thing, though. What is he going to do? Um, I think he got scared personally when the bridge guy photo came out, thinking, "Oh my God, they got a photo of me." And I think he went there because he wanted to see what they knew. I think that's what he did, and I probably to his. If anyone remembers that season finale where Homelander is just like bewildered by everyone cheering him for what he did such a horrific act. In this case, he was bewildered that like they don't think that's me. That guy's not like asking any kind of interesting follow-up questions that would lead him to believe that I'm the guy. Oh my God, I got away with this. Um, but I think he wanted to know what they knew. And he probably laughed his ass off when in 2019 they had a press conference and Doug Carter um, went on this heroic diatribe about like almost like if he knows who you are, you could be in this room, blah blah blah. And Richard Allen, I guaranteed, probably watched that, fucking smirked. If he's the guy, probably smirked and said like, "You guys don't know shit." And when he probably saw the new sketch, he probably laughed his fucking ass off. And he's like, "Oh my God, that looks nothing like me. Nothing like me." He probably thought he was walking on easy street. So, anyways, let's move on. So Allen came forward himself. Okay, we talked about that. So Rosie said Allen was confronted with lies and proclaimed his innocence. He lived in Delphi for 5 years, worked at CVS, and had a chance to leave at any point, but didn't. Well, wouldn't that be kind of suspicious if he did decide to leave? Hmm. Oh, hey, that guy that we interviewed, which, we lost that contact, but Allen didn't know that. It's like, oh, hey, I interviewed this guy and he just up and left about a couple months ago. Weird. Anyways, Rosie returned to the magic bullet. He reminded the jury that 5 bullets cycled through Allen's gun and none were good enough for comparison. The state then compared a test fired bullet to the unspent round, calling it an apples to oranges comparison, and addressing his statement with testimony from the defense's ballistics expert, Dr. Eric Warren. Rosie described firearms examination as a dangerous business and a subjective game. He suggested Oberg was essentially saying, "You should just believe me," and reminded the jury that Warren believed the comparison work was poorly done. Fair enough. Rosie said the state relied on Libby's iPhone 6 to establish its timeline and pointed out that the phones have no personality, feelings, or emotions. They just generate raw data. He said it was a simple conclusion that someone was using the phone between 5:45 p.m. and 10:32 p.m. I still call bullshit on that. I do not believe that for 1 second, which would devastate the state's timeline. I don't think it does at all. No trace evidence was found on items from Allen's home. That is true, Rosie said, suggesting that the use of a box cutter in the murder seems like a, let me see that word, profiting by the state. Well, we'll never know. We'll never find that murder weapon. So, there's a lot of conjecture on both sides on that. Questionable expert and confessions. He also questioned the involvement of prison psychologist Dr. Monica Walla, who was infatuated with the Delphi murders case, didn't recuse herself, and treated Allen at Westville Correctional Facility anyways. I agree with that. That woman should never work anywhere, in a private practice, at a prison, wherever. That woman should never work as a psychologist ever again, or anything even close resembling psychology. So I don't argue that. Again, I try to be fair. She testified in court about Allen's confessions, including a more detailed account central to the state's case. And see, that's where we get a slippery slope. There were things that she shouldn't have done, but are we saying that his confessions are not true? Well, we know that Richard Allen was confessing a lot, over 60 plus times. So two things can be true. She could be a shit psychologist, but her accounts of the confession and what she is saying can also be true. Rosie mentioned the night search of the girls on February 13th and February 14th, 2017, and said search parties looked at both sides of the creek and found nothing. He contended visibility was good and search teams had lights. It's not the same. It's not the same. And it took them some time, even in the morning. It's not like they were directly spotted. Took some time. And in the dark, you have lights, but even then, those lights are only do so good. It's like being down in a submersible and you have a certain light and you can kind of hit what was going on, or you can kind of hit like certain spots, but it's not going to illuminate the whole area to really get a good picture. And they even said that, they left at 2 a.m. because it was just too damn dark and it was getting dangerous. Once it turns dark, it's dark. So they probably didn't see shit once it became fully dark, whether it was, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. It's not like 2 a.m. is any further darker than 1 a.m. if you really think about it. But also these brilliant Odinists, or whoever the fuck they want to blame it on, they somehow magically were able to come at like 4:32 or a little after 4 a.m. and was able to, go down hills or what have you, grab these bodies and then drop them off. They were so fucking brilliant to do that in dead darkness. They must have had better lights because, they wanted to make sure everyone, hey, we're here. We got this great light equipment and we're going to put these bodies down. Hope no one sees us. Wink, wink. Again, use your fucking common sense. Rosie talks about common sense. Use your common sense. Anyways, let me find my spot here. All right, so no one identified Allen as bridge guy, Rosie told the jury. Well, they also didn't point at anyone else as the bridge guy either. There is no DNA or digital evidence linking him to the crime scene and no association between Allen and the girls. Investigators found no trace evidence in his car or on his personal items. He attempted to poke holes in the strength of the state's confession evidence, pointing that he believes Allen's confessions were false. His client was a fragile egg. And I guess fucking waving a gun in your wife's face is pretty fucking fragile. And of course, if we, the evidence that wasn't, as far as I understand, wasn't allowed to be um, shown in court is, him threatening, law enforcement while in jail. I don't think he was in Westville anymore. I think at that point, was it Cass County or wherever he was, saying he was going to fucking kill him. So even though that, the jury didn't see that, we know that outside. This guy's not a fucking fragile egg. Was he a fragile egg when he was talking to law enforcement when they're saying we think you had something to do with this? No, he was pretty fucking aggressive. This is not a fragile egg. Again, common sense says he's not a fragile egg. All the evidence shows he's not a fragile egg. I'm not saying, but you also don't have to be a fragile egg either to have a mental breakdown in prison. So the fact that they're trying to overplay that hand is kind of ridiculous to me. He said, no human could endure the conditions. Perhaps not. Allen lived in without breaking down and reminded the jury that let me say that again. Allen lived in without breaking down and reminded the jury that a defense expert testified about the damaging effects of solitary confinement. And they talk about these possibilities, but I want to know the percentage of people who are in solitary confinement, in which he wasn't even what I'd call full solitary confinement. He was still able to reach out to the outside world. He was still able to go out for recreation. Maybe not often, but he was able to do so. He's talking to a psychologist. He's talking to others. He's meeting with people. And I just want to know the percentage of people who are in those conditions who falsely confess, period, in these conditions. I want to know the evidence. Just because you could say it's possible in certain situations doesn't say in this case, does this happen very often? Are there a lot of false confessions with solitary confinement within a certain period of time, whether it's 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, whatever? Anyways, the evidence is firm that eventually you're going to break, Rosie said. He accused the state of cherry picking Allen's statements and regarded it as insulting that the prosecution didn't want the jury to see videos of Allen in custody. Well, okay, but you also didn't want the jury to hear the confessions of Richard Allen. So can we call that a wash? A state witness, Dr. John Martin, changed his opinion during rebuttal testimony after seeing video of Allen, Rosie said. He said Allen's admission included the phrase, "I think I did it," which a defense expert testified was an indication of false confessions. And I will say that is pretty interesting. I think I did it. And there's a lot of explanations for that, but one of those possible explanations is a false confession. So I can respect that because that stood out to me too. But also the prosecution, I don't think was trying to hide that either. Anyways, so Rosie's final comments. As he summed up the case, he referred to the magic bullet as the tragic bullet and said the totality of evidence make it impossible that Richard Allen is the killer. I don't know if that's true. We'll see what the jury thinks. He punctuated his closing argument with a photo of a medieval torture device and showed several pictures from Allen's cell, some of which show him laying down naked in a hood. Yeah, because the dude was trying to fucking bite the guards. Again, all of that's done on purpose. It's being recorded. Think about that. It's being recorded. Do you think that the guards or the warden or the state or anyone's going to say, yeah, let's fuck him up and let's put it on camera so it can be used against us in trial? The lady, who fucking told him to get naked? He did that on his own. Crazy or not? When he would fucking smear shit on him, did the state just leave him in that condition? No, they took him and they hosed him down. They cleaned him. They put him in a wheelchair. They strap him. It's because he's being dangerous and he's also not complying. What, did they just say, just fucking go out of the prison? Go buck wild, dude. Go buck wild. Just go that way. Go in that direction. No, don't worry about it. All of that was done for a reason. I don't know why that's so fucking hard, but I guess maybe Rosie thinks that the jury are fucking idiots. I don't know. And they very well could be, but I don't think that they are. So we've asked you to set Richard Allen free and find him not guilty, the defense attorney said. He ended his closing arguments around 12 p.m. After that, the court broke for lunch. Once the proceedings resumed, McClellan had a chance for a final rebuttal. The case went to the jury. I'm sorry, the case went to the jury at 1:25 p.m. So I didn't read anything on the anything with the rebuttal. So um, that's missing. I apologize. I kept looking for any updates regarding that. So let's see what we have here. Let's take a look here. Some comments here. I'm just looking. Richard Allen is very lucky to have Rosie and Baldwin as lawyers. Well, we're going to find out. Because the one thing I don't think he could say if this doesn't go his way is that he had ineffective counsel. He wanted those guys to stay as his attorneys. So I don't, and that's something that I think this state would argue if they try to take that to appeal. If the argument is inefficient counsel, I don't think they're going to be able to go on that. I don't think that unless it's a high powered attorney lawyer who wants to take a famous case, kind of like Kathleen Zellner in, Stephen Avery, like that whole thing, you know, that might happen. But as far as public defenders go, I don't think I don't think Richard would find anyone better than them to what they did. But they want to get popular off this too. They know it's a high profile case. So yeah, man, they definitely did well. I think they could have done more in court, but online top class and closing arguments very good. And so let me ask there's only 11 people who's watching. And again, for the 11 people, thank you. I'm not quite sure why I can't garner more people lately, but it is what it is. Who do you think had the better argument? The state or the defense? Objectively, who do you think had the better argument? I think keep this in mind. You could think that Richard Allen is guilty, but still believe that defense had the better argument. That is possible. I sleep with a blonde every night, and I wake up with hairs all over my face. Oh, dude. um, like I had an ex. Like I said, her hair was all the way down to her butt. Man, that shit got everywhere, everywhere. And yes, my face and all that. It was annoying. Last girl that I was with, she kind of had more of a pixie style haircut, which I much preferred. Only 0.03 of double child murders are committed by a non-severe member or a person not known to the victims. Non-family, I meant. As if 4 hours ago, 2 counts of murder while committing or attempting to commit a kidnapping. Tablets, and he could watch movies. See, that I didn't know. I knew he could communicate with people, but if he could fucking watch movies, don't get me wrong. Not that it would still be fun for any of us to be incarcerated, right? But I don't know, the way that COVID during the whole quarantine thing, it made me think that it could make it possible for me to last in a prison if they're giving me like luxuries such as tablets where I can communicate with the outside world and watch movies, things like that. But then again, I'm sure the beds aren't comfy. You don't get to choose your meals, right? That sucks. So there's that to consider. All right, let me stop sharing my screen here. So now that both the state and defense have concluded their closing arguments, the fate of Richard Allen rests in the jury's hands. The plethora of online comments boldly declaring innocence or guilt at this point hold no weight. Similarly, podcasts and YouTube live streams speculating on their verdict are irrelevant. Notable figures like Rick Snay, Anthony Greeno, and True Crime Design, who sensationalized the case, they don't matter. This case isn't a competition where individuals gain credibility for predicting the outcome. At its core, this trial determines whether Richard Allen, accused of murdering Abigail Williams and Libby German, will be found guilty and spend his life in prison. Ultimately, it's about delivering justice for Abby and Libby. And I want to thank you all. And when I say all, um, the nine of you, um, I want to thank all nine of you for tuning in to the final live stream of Burn After Reading. It's been a fun yet disappointing experiment, but I'm grateful for everyone's engagement. To our amazing guests, people like Lisa O'Brien, um, Fig Solves, Cold Truth. I want to thank them for sharing their views and their expertise. To the small community, thank you for your comments, questions, and participation. Don't worry, Burn After Reading will continue. It will just be in the pre-recorded format. So stay tuned for that. And until next time, I'm Rick Mullinax. This is Burn After Reading, and I'll catch your ass down the road. Thank you, guys.